It's time to stop proving yourself and start being yourself.
Because no matter what I do, somebody's going to be pissed. We want things to be black and white. We want them to be right or wrong. We want them to be good or bad. We want them to be clear and easy.
If I were to dress for my podcast audience, I would want to wear the shirt to tell them they could shove their shoulds.
We have to eliminate the judgment that we instantly feel for wanting to do something that is best for us.
Welcome back to Happiness in Progress. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy Award-winning journalist, and this podcast is in the top 1% of podcasts. I'm so glad you're here. Today, you're going to hear from Jessica Frew, a decision-making coach and the author of the new book, Shove Your Shoulds. Let's get to it. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm so excited to chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you call your new book, Shove Your Shoulds, a permission slip. Why is it that we, women especially, need a permission slip?
Man, so many things go into this. But the first thing that comes to mind is we were conditioned at a very young age not to trust ourselves and to seek outside validation from everybody else, from an institution, from school, from like anything outside of us to tell us that what we are doing is correct and right and what we should be doing, and that makes us a good girl, a good individual, a good woman, whatever that means to each of us. And so now we are looking for that permission to do what feels best for us. We are constantly seeking validation from an external source. And so when we have somebody or something that gives us permission, then we're like, oh, okay. And my ultimate goal with the book is that you will then find you don't need that outside permission anymore. You can find it within yourself. Like you are going to start giving permission to yourself. But to start, to fill that need that is in our brain, we are going to, this is your permission slip. The book is your permission slip to do what is best for you.
I think that is, well, it's empowering, but also I think it's quite scary if you're not used to doing that. To have to trust yourself without seeking the external validation. What's the first step in being able to do that if you've never really trusted yourself before? Because like you said, and it's not our fault, and there's no shame in this too. I just want to make sure I say there's no shame. We were taught this way.
Yeah. And part of that speaks to the first step of this is we have to eliminate the judgment that we instantly feel for wanting to do something that is best for us. We instantly want to judge it. We instantly want to say why it is bad or wrong or not what is good. And we have this thing that just kicks in and we want to judge it. And I always tell women to start with a should challenge. And that is, I mean, the name of the book is Shove Your Shoulds for a reason, because it is such an easy way to identify where we are judging ourselves. So we are going to start listening in on our internal dialogue on a daily basis of where am I shoulding on myself? When am I saying the word should? And sometimes the word I have to do this. This is what is required of me. And hear those words and think, okay, do I have to? Is this actually what I want to do? And I always say taking should, switch it to a could. I could do this. And right then it releases some of that judgment that we are putting on ourselves of this thing that we feel we should do. So super easy, simple place to start is just identifying the shoulds. And I think of this in like, I mean, it's not super simple, but it is. It's an easy starting place. But I think about like the 12-step program, if you are an addict, or if you go through, I was a facilitator for a program for friends and family of addicts. And we go through a very similar program where you are identifying, you have to acknowledge something. You have to have a starting point. And so that's that first step in any program is to acknowledge that something is wrong. And so identifying the shoulds gives you a starting place. When you hear those should, you're like, oh, it's there. We're not going to judge ourselves. We're not going to beat ourselves up. We're just going to acknowledge that it's there and recognize it and let it be seen.
Yeah, the awareness is key. So what are some examples of shoulds?
Yes, they show up in so many different ways. And I always say, like, people want to quantify things. So there are little shoulds, there are big shoulds, but really I think they're all kind of equal and we just have to figure out how to understand them. But things like how you should dress, what you should eat, what workouts you should do. We are told so much about what our bodies should look like and how we should age and all of these things. And so we have so much in our brains that is constantly going of, I need to eat protein and I need to do it at this point during the day and I need to take in all of these things and I should dress this way because that means I am a good person and I should look this way because that's appropriate and I should keep my hair long because that's what my partner likes. All of these things that start piling up in our heads instead of really understanding what it looks like to us. But those are some of the shoulds that I hear very often.
I love that as you were getting near the end of that list, you kind of started to run out of breath because that's what it actually feels like to carry
Hmm.
that. I mean, the weight of being underneath all of these shoulds is too much for anybody, and yet we're all living it.
Yes.
So, let me show you my shoving my should today. So I decided to wear my favorite sweater ever. I had this sweater. It has Elmo doing a
I
somersault
love
on it.
it.
I had this in eighth grade and I found it on eBay last year.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. It is a child size, so when I wear it, I have to roll up the
Pull
sleeves
them
to my
up.
elbow.
So cute.
But I was like, in preparation for this interview, I've been thinking about what are my shoulds. And as I was getting dressed today, I was thinking I would never wear something like silly on a podcast interview because this is
Mm,
serious. And all of my training, being a news anchor and I cannot tell you how many times I went into my boss's office in a closed door, very serious meeting to talk about how my outfit wasn't okay. And there would be various reasons, like pink was too like playful and childish, and black washed me out, and you could see too much of whatever. Like
hmm.
it was never okay. And also I need to be taken seriously. And so as I chose my outfit for today, I was thinking, you know what? I think I can be taken seriously and wear this outfit. And
Yes.
the other thing is I was like, who am I actually dressing for? Dressing for myself. And, as a news anchor, if I'm thinking about my audience, which was always what I was thinking about, I'm like, okay, think about my
Hmm.
podcast audience. If I were to dress for my podcast audience, I would want to wear the shirt to tell them they could shove their shoulds.
Well, I
So here,
love
anyway,
everything about this.
now I'm wearing
But
an Elmo shirt on the podcast.
that is amazing. And this is what it comes down to is like these little simple things when it's like building a muscle. It is like working out. If we start with these small things that seem small, but they are deeply ingrained in us. And especially how we present ourselves to the world is, I mean, we get judged on that a
Mhm.
hundred percent. Like all of those things you just said, there are people who are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that she would wear that." And then there are people who are like, "Oh, it makes me so happy that she is wearing what she wants to wear." And those are our people. And also, when we dress for ourselves, we are spending less time thinking about ourselves and what we're wearing throughout the day because we feel comfortable
Mm,
and excited and all of those things. And so we actually think less about ourselves. If we take the time to do what is best for us first, dress how we want to dress, wear our hair how we want to dress, do the thing that feels good to us, we spend less time thinking about ourselves. People think it means we're spending more time thinking about ourselves, but I'm like, no, I took the time. I thought about what I was going to be comfortable in. I trusted that. And now I don't have to think about it again the rest of the day. And
hmm.
so there's this beauty in that. And sometimes, I mean, it'll feel uncomfortable at first, but after a while, like showing up in the Elmo shirt on a podcast interviews, it's like no big deal. It's like, yes, I am here and I feel good and I'm doing it for me.
Right. It's interesting that you brought up you actually spend less time thinking about yourself because I think one of the hurdles that we have to get through when we start trying to dismantle all this stuff that we've learned that we must and have to, should do is I don't want to be too selfish. And
Yep.
so let's talk a little bit about that, how choosing yourself actually ends up not being too selfish. You are able to show up the way that you want to for the people you love.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so much that goes into that. And it takes a long time to rewire our brains as women to actually believe this and feel this. But once we start living into it, some of that weight you talked about at the beginning, where it's like we're running out of breath because we're living into so much should, if we are having a hard time breathing because we are carrying so much of other people's expectations, and it's a constant cycle in our head of what we should be doing and thinking about what everybody else is going to think, and all of these things, we are so detached from ourselves and from everybody else in our lives that we can't be present and connected to them. I have somebody in my life right now who possibly needs to leave their relationship or at least reframe how they show up in their relationship. And often they're like, well, it'd be so selfish and it would be this and that. And I'm like, but also, I want to have a relationship with this person where they aren't in this relationship because then I get to see who they really are. I get that deep connection to them that I'm missing because they're living into what they should do. And so when you show up for yourself and take the time for that, first of all, you have less going on in your brain that is keeping you from being truly connected to that other person. You are also creating a safe space for that other person
Mm.
to be themselves. Just like you said with like wearing the Elmo shirt and showing up in a way that is shoving your own should, you just showed your audience that they get to do that as well, that they are safe to be themselves, that they are safe to wear what they want to wear. And we create this safe space that just keeps expanding and rippling out over and over and over again. And it is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life and has the greatest impact on this world.
There is so
And
much power in that. Oh my gosh.
yes, yes. And so when you create a safe space for you to be yourself and release all of this should that you're carrying, you are going to feel a ton better. And you are going to create space for other people to do the same. So it
Hmm.
is the most selfless thing you could ever do. And also, most of, I mean, like 99% of the women that I know or people in life aren't wanting to be selfish. Like these things aren't driven from self-absorption. They are driven because of genuine love for themselves and other people. And like if you are carrying that as a concern, you are never going to get to the point where you are so self-absorbed that you are just leaving people in your path. Like it's just not going to happen. And so I get why it's so real for so many of us. Like it's deep in us. And also, I promise you, if somebody's sitting there thinking, no, 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 like whatever, that doesn't work, whatever's going through your head, I promise you this works. And I would
Mm.
challenge you to take a week, just a week, and see how it feels to start shoving those shoulds and releasing them.
Hmm. One of the things, this kind of reminds me of the part of your book you write about. You're in your second marriage and you're really playing the part. You got to make the second marriage work. All the money's put on this one and you're playing the part of perfect wife, perfect housewife. And I love this subhead that you wrote. It says, proving myself rather than being myself. So let's
Hmm.
talk about that huge difference between proving yourself and being yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Walking into my second marriage, I knew how to be myself. I had done that in my first marriage and come came out of my first marriage, which was crazy situation, to still be me and to be confident and to make decisions that are in alignment for me. And then I went into my second marriage and something flipped. And it was just like I needed to prove everything to everybody else.
Mm.
And I was trying to show up as the perfect stepmom and prove to my husband that I was worth keeping around, and his ex wife, and his kids, and his family, and all these people who didn't know me as well. And first of all, that diminished my relationship with myself, with my daughter, with my ex husband, who I had a great working relationship with, and was impacting all of those. And I realized at some point I was more afraid, like I got to a point where I was more afraid of losing myself than I was of losing my husband. I was like, you know what? I know I can't be in a relationship where I am going to lose me. And also I can't be in a relationship where I can't be myself because we do hit that point where it's like we are constantly proving instead of being. And in that space, we will never feel accepted. We will never feel fully loved or seen. I think of like Brene Brown talks about like being wholehearted and actually being accepted. We think like acceptance comes from an outside, that validation that we talked about at the beginning, but really we will never feel truly accepted until we accept ourselves and are just allow ourselves to be us. And I eventually left the marriage. I was like, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. I will be so far gone so fast that I don't want my daughter to see that. I don't want her to like think she has to give herself up in a relationship to be loved and accepted and approved of. And at this point, she was like 3. Um, it's like I'm done. And I
Mm.
left. And I ended up coming back, but with the idea of knowing Like I know how to be in a relationship and keep my own self even when things are hard, even when there are new things happening. And I came back with that determination to release the shoulds, show up for myself, set some boundaries, and it completely changed the dynamic of our relationship. And we're in 12 and a half years now, and it's the vision of what I hoped. Like, yes, there's still things that pop up. It's a relationship. There's always, we're
Yeah.
always growing and
But you
changing.
get to be yourself. You
But
are who you are.
I am safe to be myself in every dynamic of our relationship with his ex-wife, I don't feel safe with his ex-wife, but I know how to set boundaries and where to show up in a way that creates safety for me without feeling like, oh my gosh, she's going to go say this and she's going to go say that. She's going to say crap about me no matter what I do. And so I might as well do it in a way that feels good for me. So there's all these things that come into play. And I just like threw a whole bunch out there.
Hmm.
But unless you find a way to feel accepted in yourself, to show up, to create safety for yourself, you will not find that in your relationships or anywhere else in your life. You will
Okay.
constantly be performing and in a performative mode, which does not feel good. It doesn't
I
serve anybody.
I think right away someone is going to recognize if they're listening and this is their life, they're going to recognize it right away. And so now you have to fill the gap between I recognize it and now how do I get there? What would you say is the first step? Because that's going to be a little bit of a journey and growing pains for everyone involved, especially if you're talking about relationships.
Yeah, it's one small step at a time. I always say your next best decision because we are just taking it one decision at a time. And these aren't right or wrong or good or bad or anything. They don't mean anything about you. They don't mean anything about your worth or your value because that is innate. That is just given to us. I mean, you think about a little baby, like their value and worth is just innate. Like none of us, I don't think anybody would question that. Like you're given any baby and you are like, oh my gosh, like this is, even if you're not a baby person, you can see their value and worth. And that is the same for us, but we have been conditioned to believe that it is performative. And so take one small step at a time towards what is best for you. It can be putting on the Elmo shirt. It can be doing your hair how you want to do it. It can be just thinking and acknowledging about where you are shooting on yourself and seeing it and letting yourself understand that that's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable place to be to admit that you have allowed this much should to pile up and to keep you from being connected to yourself. And it's okay. And it takes a long time to unravel because we are the first person we are taught not to trust. Like going back to that beginning, like it has been years and years of conditioning. Now, it is not going to take you as long to come out of this. I promise you that. You can get traction very quickly on coming out of this mindset and recognizing where you need to shift things. It's not going to take your whole life. It's not going to take another 30, 40, 50 years. It can happen very quickly, but you have to start. Like I
Mhm.
just start with something small.
Okay, just choose one small thing today.
One small thing.
Okay, I love that you call limiting beliefs boxed beliefs.
Mm.
And so I want to read a little bit about this. You write, quote, but living in a system of boxed beliefs is not what you were designed to do. Within that box, you are limited to a small area of validation. There's no sunlight to illuminate the truth or fresh air to fill your lungs so you can breathe. You've become a prisoner of your own making. And even though you feel safe within that box, the reality is it represents stagnation, lack of freedom, and eventually those walls will start closing in. Boxed beliefs take hold when you're trying to be someone you're not, or buying into the belief, usually motivated by a need for security and safety, that other people's shoulds are a priority for your life. I thought that was so powerful. So, what is that? Again, we're going back to these first tiny steps. Everyone's going to leave this conversation with tiny little steps to take. How can we get out of that box?
Yeah. First, first steps here are releasing the logic and judgment about what it is you want. So the reason we are in a box, our brain likes to put us in a box, is because it wants things to make sense. Like our humanness wants us to make sense. And so it puts it in a box of like, okay, well, I've been told this is right. I've been told this is good. I want to be good. So I'm going to do it this way and I'm going to stay in this box because that's what I've been told. And so we have to be willing, like I think about, when you fold a box, you don't tape it shut, but like you fold it all mixed up so it stays shut. I think about like pulling one of those flaps up to let some light in and just like peeking your head out and being like, oh, there is another option here. And then like flipping up another flap and being like, oh my gosh, there is a world full of options here. I see this person doing it this way and this person doing it this way. And you're going to want to judge those people sometimes because that is what we've been conditioned to do. But then seeing that, trying to understand the good within you along that path of like, but why do I want that? Why is that what I want? Is it because I'm a bad person? No. It's the answer 100% of the time is no. It's because there's something in you that has been given to you that isn't logical. It doesn't make sense to the human mind because we want things to be black and white. We want them to be right or wrong. We want them to be good or bad. We want them to be clear and easy. And logical makes sense. But whatever you believe in, whether that is God, universe, source, or whatever, I don't know, whatever you believe in, doesn't speak or work in logic. They work in something outside of logic. And when we embrace that and see that, okay, I can see that I want this thing. I can push this flap up and I can stay in the box a little bit for now and sit comfortably, but I'm going to try this one new thing. And it goes back to one small, simple step to bust out of this box. And I'm going to allow myself to see that there are different options in the world. And then I'm going to take the next one and I'm going to see that there's another option here. And I think like back to when my ex-husband and I got first divorced. I was gonna say my first ex, but I am still married. I've only been
You're on the
divorced
one
once.
X.
But like so he is gay. He came out as gay in our marriage. We stayed married for another 7 years. There's like that's the short gist of this. And I remember when we were ready to leave, like to split and finally divorce, and we had a daughter who was 2 at that point, and just thinking, how can I make this work for me? Because I was never supposed to be the person that got divorced. I checked all of the boxes. I did all of the things right. I followed the path so perfectly. And here I am with a gay husband who had an affair with a man with we have a 2-year-old daughter. Like this isn't supposed to be what's happening. And divorce has to look like hate, anger, resentment, bitterness, all of these things. I didn't want that for me. I didn't want that for my daughter. I didn't want that for my ex. And so opening up that box and thinking like, what could we create here? How can we do this in a way that actually speaks to love and acceptance for all of us? Because we had very different beliefs and very different ways we lived and all of those things. But what would make this work? And focusing back to those things of what I actually value here is love and acceptance of self for me and for those in my family. And how can we create a relationship that lives into that? And that was the guiding principles behind that. We did that with our marriage, and now we can do that outside of our marriage. And I'm proud to say that 14 years later, we still get along and we still celebrate birthdays together and we still are able to. I mean, he was here on Halloween and like all of these things. And our daughters don't have to worry about us being in the same room or all of any of that. And for me, that came from understanding and knowing my values as I popped out of that box, saying,
Hmm.
okay, I'm going to find a new way to do this based on what I value and what's best for me. And that's really where we start is just like allowing ourselves to sit in that discomfort of this is where I'm at. This is the reality. I can't change that, but I have the power to do something with it now that may look like nothing I ever imagined.
And when you start trusting yourself, talk to me a little bit and doing these things. Talk to me a little bit about when people start shaking their head at you, how can you keep moving forward? How can you maintain that trust in yourself enough and your values that you keep moving forward?
I always say you have to keep going back to those values and reminding yourself of why you did it. Why did I take this step? Because it was important to me for these reasons. Those reasons are make me who I am. They make me a good person, if that's what which most of us want to believe, is that we are good people. We want evidence that we are good people. It doesn't make us bad. It doesn't make us wrong. It doesn't mean any of that. If you are firmly rooted in your values and are willing to go in and own when you did something that was best for you and when you made a mistake along the way, if you will own both of those things, then it creates safety within you to keep going. So sometimes when we're called out on something, like if somebody directly is like, why would you do that? Like, what are you thinking? I dated my gay ex-husband after we were divorced, like 6 months later, after he had lived with the man he had the affair with, like all of these things. I dated him again. And people, and this is another big one, like people were definitely shaking their heads, like, what are you doing? But when we know why we're doing it, it just doesn't matter. Like they can shake their heads, they can have judgment all they want. I don't need them to understand. I am no longer justifying why and how I live my life. I don't care if you have a problem with my hair. I don't care if you have a problem with the way I dress. Like that is your issue, not mine, because I know why I'm doing it. I know why it's important to me. I know the power of showing up as myself and the love that that then spreads to people around me and the safety that creates for people around me. And that is enough reason for me to be like, I just don't care what people think. Get spewed so much hate online, and I just don't care. Because when I know what's best for me, then I get to lean into that. Now, when somebody says something and it makes you question why you're doing it, it like hits and it stings a bit. We want to be offended. We want to come at them. I always think like, think of it this way. First, be like, did I really make a mistake here? Was I showing up in a way that was out of alignment for what I believe? And if it's yes, then own it and be like, yeah, that wasn't great, because you're going to feel better than just trying to justify why it was okay. Be like, yeah, I made a mistake. I'm going to try and do better next time. And number two, it could just be that that is something you've dealt with before. And you're like, you know what? I'm done letting people say this about me and letting this impact me. I'm going to keep moving forward.
I want to go back to being so rooted in what you believe that it doesn't matter what other people say, because I think that's very challenging. So online, there've been a handful of times, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to post this vulnerable thing. And then I get negative comments and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't handle the negative comments. Like I was so vulnerable and truthful and honest. And then like one of the things that I feel so strongly about and I feel so right in my own little conviction bubble is that people should accommodate my son who has a peanut allergy. And so I posted something about accommodating peanut allergies and I got, still really negative
Mhm.
comments. And then I realized, oh, the problem is not going to be me ever. It's just that I can clearly see now because I'm so rooted in my beliefs about accommodations that I know I'm absolutely right here. And so the comments didn't bug me as much. And that's when I made the connection of it doesn't actually matter what anyone has to say about anything ever. Like, even if I happen to not be quite as like rooted firmly when I'm talking about myself versus my kids, which is also probably an interesting thing to dive into.
Oh man, I
Um,
get it.
but how can we, plant those roots? Like, how can we know for ourselves, especially if we've been ignoring ourselves and not trusting ourselves for so long, how can we grow those roots to really know that we're in the right when we make a decision for ourselves?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, one of the key things is to stop thinking of it as right or wrong or good or bad. Because honestly, when we release that for ourselves, it releases it for other people. So they can come at me and I can be like, sure, maybe that's your truth, but it isn't for me. And I think too, like when we see things online, we watch people get ripped to shreds. You've got some stuff going viral right now, I know. And whenever that hits, there are people that come out that you're just like, what is happening? How do people take the most innocent thing and turn it into something horrible? But they will. And that is true whether somebody has seen 10 seconds of your life story or whatever's going on, or 10 years, or been there from day one, like your parents. They are still going to have opinions. They are still going to project their own issues onto you every single time, unless they have really done deep work on themselves. And so when we understand that no matter what you choose, right or wrong, good or bad, no matter how long the person has known you, no matter how much they think they should have a say in your life, they are going to project something onto you. Then it's like, so why am I not just doing what I want to do? What feels best for me? Because no matter what I do, somebody's going to be pissed. Like somebody is going to have an opinion about it. And so why am I letting that like determine how I'm showing up? Because I will never be able to please every person in my life. And I mean, social media is the perfect example of that. You are never going to be able to please anybody or everybody. And especially you can't justify it to every person. And it's not worth your time or energy. It
Hmm.
just sucks you dry. And the more you do, the more you show yourself that you aren't worthy and that you don't matter and that you are not worthy of making decisions for yourself. And so the more you release those things, the more you stand in your truth with full honesty of owning, again, like when you make mistakes and when you do what's best for you, you need to do both. The more confident and self-assured and safe you feel in your life. I always say we're happiness. I love happiness. I think most of us are chasing that. I also think what we're actually chasing is safety to feel happiness,
Mm,
safety to feel joy. Safety is the key under all these things. Safety to feel our feelings and allow that to be seen.
yeah.
And it is just like, again, flexing that muscle, doing it over and over again, and leaning into that of somebody's going to be pissed about what I'm doing, and that's okay because I know why I am doing it. There's some
Hmm.
value work that goes in there. There's things, I mean, I talk about all of this in my book of like more tangible things that you can do. Um, but it really is doing it over and over and over again so that then we start creating that safety to do what is best for us.
One of the best pieces of advice I received when I got into journalism, because even before social media, we're being ripped to shreds when
Yep.
we're news anchors and we get handwritten letters. I was told if you do something, if you live for their praise, you will die by their criticism. And so that
Yes.
has been so, my guiding light probably throughout my public facing career. All right. We have reached the end of the conversation, but I want to ask you my last question that I ask everyone, which is what is your number one tip to finding more joy in the good, the bad, and the in between?
Do what is best for you. I mean, that's been our whole conversation, but there is nothing that will bring you as much joy, as much safety, as much clarity, happiness, connection in life as doing what has been put into your heart and doing it in a way that works for you. It will probably make absolutely no sense to anybody else, and that's okay. They will see it as you do it. And
Hmm.
it's a beautiful gift.
It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else other than yourself.
Nope.
And we've started with the awareness. And this week, we're going to really, everybody has one challenge that they have to walk away with is become aware of one of the shoulds that you're living by and work on shoving that should. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I have long loved the phrase, don't shit on yourself. And this is the opportunity to really get to work on that. So you've got the awareness. I think stuff probably came up as we were talking. And now it's time to kind of start unraveling and find those shoulds in your life and start small. Like I said, with the Elmo shirt, start in a tiny, tiny, small place. And if you want to connect, reach out on Instagram, tell me how it goes. And don't forget to rate this podcast and subscribe. Thanks for being here on Happiness and Progress.